Welcome to the Hire Yourself Podcast. My name is Pete Gilfo, and I'm here with my business partner, Nat Truitt. We're all about helping people become better business people or just becoming entrepreneurs. Good morning, Nat.
Good morning, Pete. I'm excited.
Oh, you got to be excited, right? So I got to tell you, I went to my first Big Ten football game this last weekend.
Oh, nice.
Crazy, right? 99,000 people in this stadium. It was like nuts. I've been to big football games, but never anything like that. That was awesome.
Were they pretty organized?
It was a great experience. I got to tell you. So I went to Ohio State, and it was like 99,000 people, but it wasn't hard to get into the stadium. If you had to use the restroom or get a snack or something to eat, not huge lines. For 99,000 people being in the stadium, it was like clockwork.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. It'd be like, 2 or 3 towns around here all being in the same stadium.
Yeah, it was crazy. So it was a great experience. We got to see my daughter, and my daughter is a sophomore in college, and so we were out to dinner, and she was asking me, she goes, Dad, I'm working hard here. I want to get a job out of college, and she goes, you had a great corporate career. Why did you leave the corporate world? What did you learn from the corporate world, and why did you leave? And so I thought we'd talk about that a little bit today.
Yeah, I'm sure you were like, well, do you have a few minutes?
Well, yeah, anytime I can tell or share lessons with my kids, I certainly can. So yeah. I thought maybe we would talk a little bit about kind of the lessons that I learned in the corporate world. Sound good?
Yeah, let's do it.
So one of the things, the first thing I told my daughter is that when you start out of college and you start with a corporation, I think there's a real benefit to that. And what I mean by that is they usually have really good training programs and resources. For me, like when I started with Ford right out of college, I mean, they had an amazing, new graduate training program where we spent, basically over a year going back and forth to Detroit and training sessions. We'd be there for a couple of weeks, and we do all kinds of stuff to help us develop our skills. And I got kind of on we'll call it a management training program, and I thought that was a huge advantage to leverage all their great training and resources.
Yeah, it's almost like getting your master's degree. The corporate's paying to train you for, weeks or months or even years, right?
Yeah. I still go back to like we had to do a business program where we went through and learned how to financial statements, how to read financial statements and stuff like that. And it was invaluable. So I think from a standpoint of a corporate, is you start out with your career, it's just a great platform for training and resources. The second thing that I shared with her is that when we work for corporations, especially bigger corporations, we get opportunities that we couldn't normally get on our own, right? And I think a little bit, as I matured with my career, I got the opportunity to run a $5 billion sales and marketing organization for Ford. Where else could you go do that? I'd love to create my own $5 billion business, but those are opportunities that you get to step in and lead and run where you wouldn't get that if you were not in a corporate setting.
Totally. I have friends over the years that have been relocated, and the company actually paid for them to move to France as an example, and set up shop and live there for a few years. So it's like, also even geography or travel opportunities, like all sorts of life experiences, right?
Yeah, no, we moved every 20 months. So when we were
that was a little bit different.
Yeah.
It was like maybe guys quite as glamorous.
Well, no, but we always looked at it as an adventure because we got to experience new parts of the country. And so I think you're right. There is opportunities also with doing different things from that standpoint. And, as we talk about opportunities, it is also about this idea that I got to experience different things. So I got to learn market rep, I got to learn marketing, I got to learn sales, so they do give you the ability to be exposed to many different disciplines also when you're in a large corporation, opposed to, maybe a small business.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What else? I think a little bit about this idea that when you're in a corporate world, you get the opportunity to have mentors, right? And I think back at like my days at Ford, I had some really good mentors, guys that were really smart, very successful careers. And if you listened, they gave you a lot of great lessons or tips.
Yeah. Just thinking about that too. Did you feel did you wear a suit when you were at Ford?
For the first couple years, yeah, and then they went kind of business casual. But
A little bit
I
more
just,
business casual?
yeah, right. So I remember I was new. I was new. I had a job as a zone manager, so I called on dealers, and I'll never forget my manager, Bill Stang, just a great guy, really smart guy. And so we went to visit this dealer, and I start to get out of the car, and I got my briefcase, because I got to have every single report possible, and I've got this
Right.
other book, right? I got my control book because we had control books. So I got all this stuff in my hands, and he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "No, I got my stuff here. I'm ready to go." He goes, "Listen, this isn't about the reports." He goes, "Put that back in the car.
Yeah.
Just this is about people. We're going to walk in there. We're going to have a great conversation from that kind of stuff. And you're not taking all that stuff in there." And I thought, holy cow, that was just a great lesson. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known that unless he said it. And so I think those are the kind of opportunities that you get by having these seasoned veterans mentoring you from that
Yeah,
standpoint.
you hone your people skills because you're just interacting with so many people. It's so rapid, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's good. Now, there are also, as you're in a corporation, you get these mentoring and all that culture helps you grow. But there's also, I think, the backside of that is that there's always politics, and politics is part of a job or a position within a company.
Yes. So is that a corporate lesson or is that motivation not to be in corporate?
No, I think that's just you have to understand that it's just part of the world, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess it's probably a lesson because you have to learn to deal with it, right? You have to understand that politics is just part of the game, and you have to be able to understand it and work through it. Because if you get frustrated and you try to control, you can't really control
Yeah.
politics with a company. You just have to understand that it's there, and you have to kind of make sure that you understand it and you're working with it, not against it, because it will
That's
get
a
you.
really, yeah, that's a really good point. You don't want to be oblivious to it, right? Because you need to understand, yes, there's things that are kind of at play here. And if I want to be successful, move up, I have to play the game sometimes, right?
Yeah, so I remember the head of Lincoln Mercury. His name was Jim O'Connor,
Hmm.
and we got the Cougar. They brought the Cougar back. It was a joint project, I think, with Mazda, and it was a good car, but it wasn't a great car. And so we had some young trainees in there. We were talking to them, and one of us said, it's we kind of outlined some of the things that we had some concerns about the vehicle, and he said, you know what, sometimes you just have to play the cards you get.
Yeah.
And it was nice to listen to saying, hey, we got the car. It's not perfect, but we just got to make it work, right? And I thought, yeah, okay, that's for sure. So you just got to understand that he wasn't going to fight the system and go back and say, hey, this car, isn't what we need. But more so, let's just take what we got and see if we can't leverage it. So certainly politics is part of it. One of the other things that I think is in a corporate setting is that the lesson I learned is that you have to make a name for yourself. You have to be a change agent from that standpoint. So you need to stand out amongst your peers.
Pete, I can't imagine that it was ever important to you to stand out or be number one.
Well, and I don't know if it's necessarily about number one, but being certainly a change agent. And I think a
Yeah.
little bit about my area of expertise at Ford was I was in charge of incentives. So anytime like you see customer cash or special APR rate or a lease deal on a vehicle, that's what I did. And I did it at multiple different levels at Ford and ran very large incentive budgets. And I redid that. So I was the first guy or one of the first to take incentives and announce them instead of a batch system. In the old days, we'd send stuff over the computer and it'd arrive the next day in the dealerships. I literally took all the incentives and created a website where we loaded them up on a website. So they had the incentives immediately from that standpoint. So those are the kind of things that you have to be a change agent and always be pushing to make the organization better.
Yeah. Yeah. That totally makes sense. And also, I think taking ownership of whatever you're doing, right, to
Yeah.
make it better.
Yeah, because I'd go in and I look at processes and I hated obsolete or practices that were just they wasted time and stuff like that. And I saw a lot of that, and I tried to make a name by changing things. So And I think one of the other lessons that I shared with my daughter is that you always need to be kind and respectful to everyone, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's the janitor or the CEO, you treat everybody with respect and stuff like that. And every once in a while I'd see people that they maybe had an attitude and they weren't kind to everybody else. And I think in an environment where be kind to everybody as you're going up, because you hope they're kind to you when you're coming down.
Right. That's totally true.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think the biggest thing that I learned towards the end of my career, being in the corporate world, is that a corporation and an employee, it's a mutual relationship. But what I mean by that is that it's a relationship, and as long as the relationship works, meaning you're providing value and the corporation's providing value, that's great. But we see now that when bottom line is the company's done with you, you're no more value to them. They just let you go. And when a company doesn't provide value to the employees, they're just leaving now. So it really is a symbiotic relationship where you have to understand it's a mutual relationship and you both have to be giving. And if somebody isn't giving, then most likely the other person is going to leave.
So after that little chat with your daughter, if you had a crystal ball, do you have any inkling whether she'll jump into corporate or try to do something more entrepreneurial? What's your guess?
No, she'll absolutely go into corporate. Yeah. She'll go into accounting. She'll hopefully work for one of the big accounting firms and stuff like that.
That's great.
And I would encourage her to, right? It's a great way to get the experience, because then you can take that and leverage it, like we see with many executives, right? They take what they learned in the corporate world, all that business acumen, that leadership skills, and they use it to start their own business. So I think it's a great way to learn. You just have to understand that there's a lot to it, and you get the most out of it as you're with that corporation.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. The other thing that kind of popped to my mind as we were chatting is that especially when you're young and joining corporate, it's like very social, right? You have a lot of connections and relationships that you might have for the rest of your life. Sometimes being an entrepreneur, can be a little bit more isolating, because you're a little bit more on your own and you're local. So it's like, but I know when you graduate college and join corporate, it's super, you're meeting so many people.
Yeah, right. It's a great experience. And so you just got to understand that you get as much out of it as you can, and hopefully take it down the line and go take control of your life, being an entrepreneur.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that, Pete.
All right. You got it. All right. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Hire Yourself podcast. For more resources, check out our website at hireyourself.com. And remember to subscribe to this podcast to receive each episode. Please leave us a rating, and we'd love to hear your feedback or suggestions for topics.